Hello, everybody on Zoom. Hello, everybody in person. I hope this is all working. I am very, very happy to present to you three alumni who will be introduced. I'll introduce one of them who will then take over and I will disappear. Douglas Soltys is the editor-in-chief of BetaKit, an independent Canadian tech publication, and founder of BetaKit Incorporated. He has spent his life writing about or working for Canadian tech companies. Importantly, he is proud to be a HUMS and not J-School grad. He wrote that, not me.
We'll get into it. I think this is a special moment for me personally. I don't think I've been in this room for over a decade, so it's the energy is high. But I think everyone here understands the value of this program, but then also maybe some of the uncertainty that you feel as students about what comes next. And we're all in a position now to maybe spend some time giving back and talking about that to hopefully open up some opportunities and honestly to get back in the lecture hall and crack some jokes about readings and stuff like that with you. So I'm going to start with Amanda. Okay, this is a lot, but pay attention because Amanda's done a lot of things. She is probably the most interesting person in the world. So we're talking about a Toronto-based cultural programmer, producer, and talent specialist. She holds 2 degrees, obviously at BHum's, and then a master's degree in art history from U of T. She has worked at the Canadian Opera Company, the Art Gallery of Ontario, the Toronto International Film Festival, and then she spends her evenings side hustling with the renowned, important, underscored, Canadian Indie Opera Company Against the Grain Theatre. Her career has always intersected with arts, technology, and education, which I think you're going to see is going to be a theme for the conversation today. And she's currently working for Shopify as a senior talent sourcer or internet detective, which I would hope would be on a business card because that is the smoothest thing to drop on someone in any business circumstance. Ian is a project manager with a philosophy degree, which is super cool. His career is focused on digital education and skill development projects, mostly in the public sector, where he's worked with various government ministries, national organizations, and universities. His work has been featured by Apple and appeared in TechCrunch. I think everyone here should know one of those 2 things, but both of them are really cool. And then recently he joined Shopify, where he's helping build companies' technical education, work integrated learning, and onboarding programs. We're going to explain what all those words mean, hopefully. He's also a versatile big man who can run an effective pick and roll. I've had many wonderful experiences with him on the courts, both here at Carleton and in the streets of Toronto. Okay, so that out of the way, I'll give you a little bit more about myself, that experience kind of either working for or writing about tech companies. My career started while I was in university, working for software companies in Ottawa, focused on something called the BlackBerry smartphone, which doesn't really exist anymore. I was running digital publications covering mobile technology while in university. I happened to work directly beside Professor White's husband. He would kick me awake from sleeping under the desk when I was working to finish papers for her. And then I went off working for larger tech companies and now own my own publication. So I think I want to start with the prompt, the reason why you chose humanities. And Amanda, let's start with you.
So I'm a second child. I have an older brother who did all the hard work to convince my very foreign, very Middle Eastern parents many, many years ago that it's okay to study a liberal arts degree. So he'd come home every day after school, after his seminars and talks and like drinks at Mike's place, and he would go on about this like really cool field where you could learn a holistic education. You were reading all these great books in really intimate sized classes, getting to know your professors as like colleagues and friends. And I was just really wickedly jealous. I was a high school senior with none of those things available to me. And I had no clue what I thought I would study as a professional field. All I knew was that I wanted to study and just try to grow up and become a person. And the program that he was describing seemed like it was very open to people like me who were maybe indecisive but had a lot of passions and interests. So that is what led me to apply.
So I grew up in Waterloo, Ontario, and so Carleton was kind of far away from where I grew up. I heard about the program through a recruiter that came to my high school, and gave the presentation. Funny story, I ended up being that recruiter after I graduated and giving that presentation. And honestly, it was the reading list. I was interested in philosophy. I had read Marcus Aurelius's Meditations in grade 11, and it kind of like opened up the world of philosophy to me. And so I was looking at philosophy programs, but I had a lot of other interests, and I wanted to read a lot of cool books. And this program is exactly that. Like, just the reading list itself, I think that the recruiter had, and maybe had put on a slide or something in my high school auditorium, like I was sold right there.
I applied to Carleton in a general arts degree, just searching for something meaningful. I knew I did not want to pursue university education as a form of job training, but I didn't know what I was searching for. I showed up at the registration office on like the first day, had a very kind upperclassman walk me through a variety of classes that he thought I might like just based upon the syllabus descriptions, and one of those happened to be a Greek Civ class that Professor McIsaac was teaching outside of the college to first-year students. And it was one of the few classes I experienced in my first year at university where I felt like I was getting something more, and maybe like drawn to that idea of understanding that there was something going on with the world, and there was a discourse between ideas and people and society. So I went up to him at the end of that exam, which I think I did pretty well on. Let's say historically I did great on that exam. And I said, Professor McIsaac, I want more of this. Where do I get more of this? I want the juice. And he said, have you heard of this College of the Humanities? And I said, no, absolutely not. Are classes like this? And he said, yes. And I applied. And again, I don't know if that is the experience that most of you have had. And maybe when we do the Q&A, we can get into that. But I consider myself very lucky to have accidentally found the one class that led to the person who saw a desire in me to be here. And I think part of the reason why we're here is maybe give back. Take yourself back to that time, maybe just slightly before graduation, how you were seeing the outside world and like career opportunities coming out of school.
I think when I was about to graduate, the career trajectory that a lot of my friends were taking were like, oh, I'm going to go do another degree. Like, why stop the party? You know, let's just keep learning for learning's sake. And so as a backup recourse, because I had no idea what I did want to do professionally, I did apply to just live in a city that I wanted to live in, which is Toronto. And so I applied to U of T. I was doing a double major in art history while doing humanities. So it seemed just really easy to fall into another pursuit of higher education and just take that degree. I didn't know what I could feasibly do, but I knew I liked art, visual arts, I liked galleries, I liked music and opera, and I liked film. And I thought all of those things are like triple fold in Toronto. Ottawa's wonderful and has that cultural scene now, but in 2010, Toronto just seemed like the place to just live my life.
So when I applied to HUMS when I was, like 18-year-old, high school, soon to be grad, you know, you get those phone calls. I don't know if they did that for you guys, but everyone calls you to, like a fourth-year student, I think, calls you to say, welcome to the program, do you have questions? So I started volunteering. Professor White needed folks to do that. So I offered to do it, and I was calling first-year students, or prospective students, I guess. And that led to a job at Carleton, being a recruiter. So when I graduated HUMS right away, I had this pretty cool job working for Carleton. They give you a car, you get to drive around the province and like go to high schools and do this kind of thing, honestly. So I wanted to do that. It was interesting, but I knew I wanted to go to grad school as well. So I went to U of T. I did political theory. So the Waller-Newell stuff that we were talking about before, that's definitely U of T political theory. And honestly, like I thought I would pursue a PhD. That was my track for sure.
Because you wanted that, or that was just the track most?
No, I
available?
wanted it. You know, when you're a good student and you're here, and this is your whole life, it felt like that's what I wanted to do, and it made me happier than anything else did, to be honest. You know, so I was at U of T, and I don't want to like, you know, defer anyone's dreams, but like that pathway is pretty tough and bleak, to be honest with you. Like, you know, you're at U of T, which is the best school to do graduate work, doctoral work like that, and probably less than 30% of those PhD grads got into tenure track positions. I borrowed money to go to school, so I had a lot of student debt. And I started tutoring philosophy, which I didn't think there's a market for, but believe me, there is. And that kind of sparked just like a love for teaching and a way for me to continue to do this kind of thing and talk about those books and have those ideas without necessarily needing to wed myself to another 5 years of school and debt and maybe not a totally clear picture of what the career would be. So I did that for a few years, and that's how I got into kind of the career I'm in now. It was like education. I started working for not-for-profit agencies, some government stuff, and all those jobs ended up giving me technology skills that I now can use and have a job at Shopify from doing that. But that's not how it started. It started by wanting to be an academic and liking philosophy, to be honest. You know, a career is always a function of what you previously did and how you can use that whatever you want to do next, right? Something interesting appears to you and you think about the skills that you've picked up, things that you've learned, and how can you market yourself for that cool opportunity that you want. And so because I was a recruiter and then I started tutoring as well, I kind of had this educational skill set that, again, I guess I didn't really know that I had, but I started to pick it up. And that's what allowed me to ended up teaching at a private school for a little bit in Toronto. I did civics and careers because I had some knowledge about that. And at the time, the Ministry of Education was redesigning the career studies class. So I don't know who went to high school in Ontario, but it was probably still like a half credit if you did. Yeah, exactly, like half credit civics, half credit careers. A lot of people fail careers.
It's not a bad sign.
Yeah, because they don't show up to it, I think. And so the ministry knew that that was a problem and they wanted to redesign it. And so I was working with a not-for-profit that was like kind of consulting on that. And so again, you just see how these things that you pick up that at the time, like honestly, when I was 22 doing that, I felt, or 23 or 24, I felt like, oh, this is like my dream of doing a PhD is dying and I'm trying to pivot into something else. But now looking back with some hindsight, it was kind of serendipitous that it all worked out that way.
Okay, because I think what we wanted to talk about, and Ian alluded it to, it was the idea to maybe pursue tech as a career path. Ian, you kind of sound like you were drawn in. I know for me personally, I don't have any technical skills whatsoever. Like I can maybe edit a podcast right now. I can do some basic video work, as the team here knows from what we were doing prepping before. But I was just a writer, and I would go to tech companies and say, I don't want to be a bartender at the Mercury Lounge anymore. Is there alternatives for me? And they say, well, what can you do? And the only thing that I had to offer was communication skills. And that got me into tech. I had a personal interest in tech, but I wasn't actively considering that to be the place. I just ended up there. Amanda, we were talking before about that kind of overlap between arts, culture, digital, and then into tech. Can you just talk about your journey?
When I finished U of T, like while I was at U of T, all of my colleagues, like my fellow students, were just like, oh, I'm going to become a curator. That's the one job you can have, or another academic, or I'm going to become what's known as a gallery girl. Horribly reductive term, meaning I sit at a reception desk and sell art or show people art. Those are the three career options in art history. It's depressing. And it's like very gendered and very disappointing. While I was studying, a lot of my colleagues needed help, like Doug and Ian were saying, with just studying themselves or writing or editing their essays. Mm-hmm. And a lot of my friends were actually international students. So English was maybe their second, third, fourth language. So they really were looking for someone who was a native speaker to just proof their exhibition catalog if they were an artist, or like help edit their essays. And doing that, like that kind of core communications, reading comprehension, research work that you get in humanities, which, trust me, a lot of people do not get in other degrees to the level that you're getting it, was so valuable and very fun. I just liked helping them. And that led me to an editorial job at TIFF at the Toronto International Film Festival. It was an internship. Internships are going to be really easy pathways for you all. They're paid co-op positions or paid internship positions for people that want to learn a skill. And I lied in my interview. They were like, what do you know about film? And I was like, oh, I love Kurosawa and Miyazaki. And I just named a bunch of international filmmakers whose films I had seen maybe like 3 seconds of on YouTube. So first of all, lie in interviews. You can learn any skill. That's my big takeaway, sorry. And working in film, I learned a lot about just technology because everything we did had to be translated online. You know, like marketing was not just mailing people ads in newspapers, right? It was digital ads and newsletters. I learned about social media while I was working at the film festival too. Led me to a job at a national gallery, which then led to me working in opera, because it all goes on. But basically, what you guys are all just more than one thing. You have lots of disparate interests, and what I think we're trying to say is that all of those disparate interests have intersections with tech because of the applications and products you're using, but the skills that you have now translate to all of those fields.
Yeah.
Like, so basically, I can tell you I was a cultural programmer, a producer, a social media director, and all those fancy words, but I was doing them at really traditional institutions, a film festival, a gallery, an opera house. It just happened that they were seeking someone that could pick up new skills, I suppose.
All of our personal interests intersected in some way with digital and tech, because at this time in the, just say generally mid-2000s, let's be charitable to ourselves, tech and digital was enveloping every sector. So those roles had to interface in some way with digital and tech, and therefore just kind of became part of our career paths.
We're not trying to say that you should turn HUMs into job training in any way. I think the beauty of this program is that it's not job training, to be honest, like that you get 4 years where you're just learning and reading and exploring ideas. That's something that I miss, honestly, since having left it. But that being said, I think that there are things that you do get, skills that you're acquiring here that honestly I just didn't even know that I had when I left. And it wasn't until I was in a workplace getting a chance to exercise those skills that I realized that, oh, I am a good writer. I mean, you're surrounded by writers that are all probably pretty good. Like, if you're in this program and you've gotten through it, then you've come out a pretty good writer. And again, because all your peers are also, you know, articulate, good thinkers, good readers and writers, you think that that's just kind of par for the course. Those are things that start to set you apart when you are in a workplace. An ability to read dense text and articulate its, you know, like to distill it and reconstruct the argument to somebody. And you know, to Doug's question, like this is kind of what you do as a project manager. It's like working with different stakeholders on something that a business or an organization is trying to accomplish. You know, being able to negotiate trade-offs between two different, you know, competing interests that people have. How can you
arguing both sides to understand the
exactly. Arguing both sides, being able to consider that two things could be true at the same time. Again, reconstructing an argument for somebody else and summarizing it really quickly. You know, understanding value and where you think value is, right? Like if you have to direct, you know, a couple $1 million budget, for example, that, you know, government wants to do something, what should you direct the money towards? It should be something that's valuable. And again, these are things that I didn't even realize were skills that this program gave me. And again, just an ability to think clearly and to speak clearly and read. Yeah, again, I thought that I didn't pick those things up here, but when I got into the job market, it was certainly clear.
And took them as granted. I think if there's, just to reinforce that idea that I specifically pursued this program because I fundamentally believed and agreed with Professor McIsaac that education is not job training or does not have to be. But that what we're here to do is probably maybe shorten the cycle of realization that you might have for things that you take for granted, which, speaking to the architects of this college, were intentionally put into this program year by year. Like, we don't have to talk about the elements of style or things like that, but like this was the intention. I think part of the reason why we want to give back, have this conversation is if we can shorten the realization that all of you will eventually have, that you've gotten something special here and then it's valued out in the world, even if those people can't articulate that value. I think that's a pretty big win for me and makes me happy to be here because I see it every day, not only in my role, but now as a manager of a publication taking postgrads, and they're trying to explore careers in journalism and seeing maybe some of the disparities between what they've been taught, their experiences, and where they need to be in their roles, and honestly just the value of a well-reported story.
Yeah, so and just for context, right now I work as what's called a talent sourcer or talent specialist for Shopify. So again, totally different from my other 16 jobs that I had in the last 10 years. But what I do is I work for the teams that hire people. And how we hire is how I think a lot of companies are hiring right now.
Yeah.
The types of people they look for are how a lot of companies are looking. So essentially, I also give advice to friends and colleagues who work in the arts, who come from liberal arts backgrounds, who are like, I need to refocus and figure out a new career path because the museum closed down during the pandemic, you know, or like there's been furloughs, like real world impacts have forced a lot of my friends, our friends, to sort of think about new careers, what they can do with the skills they currently have without having to take a whole new degree. So in terms of what you have right now from the humanities degree, that is completely valued, as Doug keeps saying, is the people you're sitting next to and the people on Zoom that you're probably surreptitiously chatting with. The friends you make, the connections you make in the college are super important. More important than the professors you're learning from at times. Sorry, love them all. But we have all stayed friends over 10 years. We have helped each other get jobs. We have helped each other when we were unemployed. We have shared connections with each other. And like, you know, if you're well-liked, if you're, you know, helpful to your friends and you'll like, you know, review their essays for them or just like be a supportive friend, they'll remember you in 5, 10, 15 years when there's a job opportunity or when there's a person they might want to connect you with. So all of your friends too have come from very different backgrounds and maybe have a lot of cool side hustles or passions. You're not all just students. You're not just defined by humanities. You're probably artists, you're probably writers, you probably make things on the side. The people you know now are the people that are going to help you in 5, 10, 15 years, as I'm saying, and maybe introduce you to skills and jobs you didn't think that you wanted to learn or do. So don't discount everybody here right now as being someone that you'll maybe want to keep in touch with. Like that's the most valuable thing of the program, is how it attracts these really weird, interesting people, to be quite frank. You're all weird, interesting people, and I'm sure you feel it.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you can feel it together in a room for once.
Yeah. By way of comparison to other programs, if you were to take an MBA or you were in engineering, those programs are explicitly designed nowadays to force networking upon them because of those kind of career trajectories needing that. Again, the college was implemented in such a way that there is that, like, you are separate and apart in some ways within the larger body of Carleton University. I think sometimes that can be taken for granted. You're probably not seeing like the tight-knit, well, I guess the tight-knit Discord conversations. We live in an interesting age, and how that might be fueled. And I think we're maybe examples of saying to not take that for granted, to hold on to it, and maybe even push it a bit further because it can be valuable, right? So talk about how you kind of packaged yourself up going forward.
Okay. I'll do my best here. I mean, I was going to give some tips, but maybe I can try to weave those into.
Yeah.
What would I say? Again, look, like in Doug's, like the bio that Doug read for me, right? I said I was a project manager with a philosophy degree. A lot of project managers that I meet do not have philosophy degrees. They probably have commerce degrees. And then maybe they got like a certification somewhere. I have some certifications too, but again, I actually try to lead with that when I go into conversations. And I think that, again, what you pick up here in this background, you can succeed not despite of it, but because of it. And I think it being, you know, again, being well-read and having a bit of a different background and different perspective makes you an interesting candidate to people. Again, it's good to balance that with, you know, like I say, I do have some certifications. Like, it's good to balance that with things that do kind of show a prospective employer that you can do the skill. But I picked those up along the way, right? Honestly, the biggest thing is just you're good learners, and you can learn those things as you need to.
And that is really cool to people who are looking to hire talented young people and see them grow within the organization.
Yeah, I mean, that's, like I say, like for tips, like that's what I would say. Like I I always thought you had to be like a technical person to work for a technology company. All my entry into tech came through the public sector. I was working at a university managing projects that the government funded, and those projects involved technology. I became more capable talking about it and working with it, and working with developers and like building apps and websites and digital services for people. And now I had put my eye on Shopify because it's a cool place to work. It is, and it's growing like crazy. But I never thought that there was something there for me, given my background, right? I thought, okay, maybe I'd stay in government or university world. So for tips, it's like first of all, there's a lot of positions out there that technology companies hire for that are not technical by nature, but you can do really cool things. Like I build learning programs for Shopify. Like Shopify might open a campus, you know what I mean? Like I have no idea what they're gonna do. There are these types of things that these companies do, right?
There was maybe some concern that you couldn't get in those roles because you weren't technical. I would say like the greatest tool that you probably have to be capable in whatever role you're looking to apply for is Google. Because most of the tools, whether you're not technically proficient, can be solved by Googling how to do something, watching a 30-minute YouTube video, and then boom, you know whatever digital tool set that most people across companies in North America are required for the data, whether it's like Slack, Zoom, Trello, like just name whatever tool set, Salesforce, any of these things where you're like, oh, I'm not technical, I can't figure it out.
What apps do you have on your phone? Those are skills on your resume.
Yeah, totally.
I'm not joking. How many professors had to learn how to teach online in the last 18 months and didn't know how to use any of that software, any of that Keynote stuff? They learned it. They learned it in that moment. Someone taught them. Maybe you like helped them yourselves, but like every app on your phone is a skill.
Yeah, I mean, for both of us, the onset of our careers came as social media became a thing. And we weren't hired because we were like trained and certified in social media. We were young people at the time who were digital natives, who were incredibly compelling to larger enterprises who needed that skill set. But show of hands, does anyone have, maybe just show of hands, did our experience, some of our concerns match how you feel when you think about what happens outside of this program? First year in the back, thank you.
I just have a question about your experience with working with the film festival and in film, sort of what your background is for film.
Yeah, so just for the Zoom people, because I don't know, like first year students are not mic'd by rule of law. So the question was for Amanda about her experience working with the Toronto International Film Festival, which is again, a super cool job.
Yeah, and like they're an amazing employer, by the way, and they have a huge technological overlap as well. Like, and I was working with them up until the pandemic too. I was working with them on and off for like most of my 10 years in Toronto. Right before the pandemic, this is totally off topic, I had programmed a series, a retrospective to celebrate Catherine O'Hara of Schitt's Creek and Second City, an amazing, amazing Canadian
Mostly
comedian.
Schitt's Creek though.
She was going to fly in. I was going to interview her on stage. It was going to be the highlight of my life. There's no end to that. That's just it. That's just, she canceled. We had to cancel. So how did I even get into a film festival? I didn't study film. I am not a filmmaker. Here's what I did have. I loved storytelling. Humanities equipped me with a foundational appreciation of also international storytelling, right? Not just the Western canon of stories. I understood religious texts and backgrounds and cultural nuances and mythology and symbol. And I could go into an interview with TIFF, just a intern editorial position, working on what was then called publications, like a magazine to promote and market their year-round cinema. And in the interview, they were like, "What drew you to the job? Like you're not a journalism student, you're not an English student, you're not a film student. Why did you apply?" And I said all the things I just said to you today. I was like, I love storytelling. I love visual media. I think it's really important that we are exposed to international storytelling to become more empathetic citizens of the world. I think a lot of people's projections of their own differences, racially, ethnically, religiously, could be solved by just watching more international films. So that's sort of what led me to them. TIFF is an amazing employer for just sharing emerging and established films. And I found the route into that building that I could most easily translate in terms of my skills, which is I'm a good communicator, I like copy editing, I like reading and researching, and if I don't have the skills you're looking for, I promise I can learn them the way that Doug and Ian have very quickly and lie until then.
Yes.
So I don't know if that answers your question.
Well,
yeah.
but also just a shout out, like, let's give some credit to the educational content of the program, where if you are writing the catalog for the Toronto International Film Festival, and there's a multitude of films being submitted that are either retellings of original myths or Bible stories, it helps to have read those. Like, shout out single text exegesis. That is incredibly valuable. Question over here.
Yeah, okay, I was wondering if you could kind of highlight the skills or like key phrases that you use to market yourself when applying to the tech industry despite not having like the traditional career path. Like, what kind of things made you stand apart, especially like the things that you gained from the humanities program?
I think the mic maybe picked that up, but like what specific elements of our skill set did we use to market ourselves, and important keywords there, because sometimes it is anchored to those specific words that translate across academia.
Can I add, Ian, what were the first things on your resume in 2010, right? Like fresh grad from humanities.
Yeah, so like I say, I was lucky to get that job at Carleton, so that was at the top of my resume. Look, I think, again, I initially really thought that my skills were like research, writing, and like when you're talking about keywords, like this is what I was putting at the front of everything was, oh, you know, I'm a good writer or a researcher, I'm interested in maybe public policy because of the political theory background, things like that. And I spent a lot of time applying to those type of jobs when I graduated U of T, and or like kind of education adjacent jobs, and like didn't have a lot of luck. Like that's why I was a tutor for a year, because I was underemployed coming out of U of T for sure. Now, there's definitely some like language you pick up, like Doug's joke about optionality. Like, just like you learned a lot of new ways of speaking coming here, like if anyone is a philosophy double major, then like you'll know what I'm talking about. Like there's a certain way of talking to those people, just like you'll learn that in technology as well. So there's certainly.
How many definitions for soul do you have in your head, possibly as a fourth-year student? Optionality, like it's just think of every footnote in the reader. Those are just the terminology that you need to pick up to speak the language of the people that you're communicating to.
Yeah, I think that's the short answer, right? Is like there is definitely a language that you will pick up. These days, what I would say, keywords that I use, okay, so to be direct about it, like again, stakeholder management for sure. Managing budgets, I've had a lot of experience with. Again, at this point, I've now built a few like digital education programs. So there are kind of like buzzwords, I suppose, that you do start to learn what they are and you use them in your resume.
What about things like scoping requirements or coordination, things like that?
Yeah, that's good too.
Things that like any HUM student prepping for a paper would just be doing naturally and not realize that transfers from a paper to a PowerPoint.
That's a good point. I mean, project management's basically about organizing work and understanding what work there is to be done, right? And so when you're a graduate student, if that's what, we saw some hands when people said that's what they wanted to do, like being a grad student ends up being a lot more like a job where it's even more independent than what you have here as an undergrad, and there's a lot more work to do. So if you're not planning that out, you probably won't make it through those courses with your sanity intact.
Yeah.
And so Doug's point, like what I might describe as like planning and organizing a paper now, like that's the language that I had when I was a graduate. Now I would describe that as like scoping requirements.
Yeah. That's my essay workflow.
You can use
exactly, like defining
bureaucratic
workflow.
language. But those keywords that Ian mentioned, like we talk a lot about like communications and even just fluency. Like you all have a second language requirement through the program, yes? I think still? Yeah. Okay, I chose Latin. Super useful. I'm not joking. It really was. It's the root of all romantic languages. But just being able to tell them, I learned another language in 4 years. I could learn anything you throw at me right now. Is very, very valuable, very interesting. But don't think of this program as the only thing that you're going to put on an application or a resume. Like, none of you are just going to school, I hope. I imagine you're doing your own extracurricular reading or socialization volunteer work. We're in also a very fraught year where community activism means more than ever, and mutual aid. List all of that stuff everywhere on your personal social media, website, portfolio, LinkedIn. That's what also makes you a fully rounded human, is not just what you do in this seminar room, which is very exclusive, can be a little coddling. You know, this is where your brain can relax and learn and be challenged, but what are you doing in the world right now? Put that down and share that with your potential employers or your potential mentors, and do volunteer if you have the time and the means and the ability, or just do what you can online even to direct people to the right resources and fundraising efforts. Like, that is what I had put on my resume when I was graduating too. It was like, I am a student of this program, but I'm also a citizen of Ottawa, and here's all these things I was doing on the side. And
easy corollary that each paper you submit has certain requirements for like how you format, class code, your name, things like that. If you spend some of that time and skill set presenting yourself and your skills in the world and the spaces where people look for it, like, I would recommend that everyone now create a LinkedIn account if you don't have one, because that will be kind of your
passport.
Your passport, the syllabus of your career, things like that. I have one keyword, and I think it's more reactive to the conversation around the college in terms of like what the business community is looking for, and or what the government is looking to finance in terms of skill development for young people, and that would be like STEM. I think where you want to be, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, I think where you want to be is pushing kind of the emergent conversation around STEAM, which actually includes arts into the consideration, because scaling companies in Canada and the US and elsewhere are realizing that they've maybe over-indexed on very specific skill sets, and then the people that they need to manage those teams of engineers
who have soft skills.
Benefit entirely from the arts. To answer your question by kind of rejecting the premise a little bit, I only ever submitted a resume for a job once, and it was to BlackBerry, and it was also at a company that required a very extensive background check. Every other opportunity I had came from the network that I built and the connections that I made leading to opportunities, so that I was actually either a known or a desired entity based upon my work history. So the resume is super important to get into the door, but what you're doing with it, who you meet going forward, and those connections can be ultimately as powerful.
I'm actually interested in how working for the Art Gallery of Ontario was. Like, what was your position? What did you do?
For context, I went to U of T and then parlayed my way into an internship at TIFF, the film festival. And I was working in traditional print media too. I was working on a publications there, and I was seeing in 2013 or 14, a lot of things are moving online, you know, like people are not picking up magazines the way they used to. And I was seeing there was a growing digital team at the festival, where videographers and social media producers, wasn't even a word, community managers, were being hired. And I started to volunteer to learn how to do that work with a tiny indie opera company. They wanted someone to tweet, use Twitter. Turns out you seem to be really good at writing and really funny and know how to find great images or GIFs. So I pretended for the AGO that I did this full-time professionally on top of my job at TIFF. I was like, oh, I know how to run social media. You can see from this very small indie opera account. So when the AGO was posting a job for a community manager, head of social media, I showed them my portfolio and I said, yep, a lot of this is for one tiny startup indie opera company, but I promise you I can run a full-scale institution's social media accounts. Just let me try and let me blow your socks off. And I think I was the least qualified candidate they had in their interview pipeline. I think they were interviewing people who had done social media professionally for at least a couple of years, because again, it was very nascent. 2011 to 2014, wasn't a lot going on. But I was just telling them, I studied a program that really made me understand visual media and storytelling and the historical context behind the art. Not just being able to, use technical apps will help you when it comes to really explaining art online. So that's how I got the job, was I'm a really good liberal arts graduate. Trust me, you want me in charge of the keys to the car. Someone else will blow it. They'll write something wrong, they'll misspell it, or they'll worst of all, make like a cultural mistake when representing a piece of art.
Yes.
So the context that I was able to show them and like the research that I do before creating, engaging posts, I think is what got me the job. And then I persuaded them to keep me on by just demonstrating my work.
When I'm looking to hire, the experience level based upon past history is not as important as energy, enthusiasm, willingness to learn, because that is a much more versatile capability than someone who has done that thing before.
Yeah, in a lot of arts institutions, they will hire people with any background too. So unless you are meant to be someone that has a background in security software, a lot of these jobs, they don't even exist yet, Like when we were graduating, that wasn't a job that I knew I would have in 4 or 5 years. Who knows what the job will be in a couple more years once you're all graduated too.
But they will need people who can put context around what they do technically to communicate that to everyone else in the world.
Yeah.
And everyone here in this room is capable of doing that fundamentally.
Yeah, you read very dense, complicated texts, and that is so, so skilled. It's amazing how skilled that is.
Do we have more questions, or was a hand up here?
Oh, yeah, I have to admit, I just have a hard time imagining how all this job searching stuff works. Like, I can't imagine having an actual career. It just seems something, like, I know that sounds...
This is for you. You're both philosophy people. Yeah.
This sounds incredible. I know it sounds very naive, but...
Engage in the dialectic.
I can't imagine, like, going through all that uncertainty that all of you guys went through, right? I can't imagine a future where I don't have everything just a clear path laid out in front of me, like a university program lays out in front of you, or they laid out for you in high school or elementary.
The idea we'll be addressing is being incapable of imagining pursuing careers or jobs beyond the confines of the college. And I think like the answer, like we feel exactly the same way. I am 38 years old, and I run my own business.
Yeah, put that out there.
And only now, within this year, after 5 years of running this business, do I feel successful in that. Only now do I feel, in retrospect, like I have control of my career and that I am directing it and it is being directed. We probably should have had this conversation earlier. And I think part of the reason why we're here and we're like very excited with some of the conversations we've been having with Shauna and like the rest of the college is that we could be doing this more regularly and more iteratively. In the startup realm that I come from, there are things called incubators and accelerators. They're programs where you put a bunch of companies together and they're designed to just rapidly accelerate their process of building a business. And fundamentally, the kind of rule of these programs is they will put companies that are 6 months through the program right beside companies that are just entering, because those people 6 months in have done all the things that the new entrants are about to do and can kind of show them that pathway. We were talking before, I don't know, before it was turned on, the Adopt a First Year program. I don't think you will ever fully come to reconcile with your future, but I think the reason why we're here is to share with you that you're not alone in doing that, because no one's individual career path is exactly repeatable, but if you take ownership of that process, being uncertain is okay.
If I could just throw something in, I think there's an expectation when you're in high school that you need to know what you're going to be when you grow up, and so you go and you get your 4-year degree, and then you're supposed to be something. And I think that what you're seeing from our panelists is that you can just take a job and then take another job and see where that takes you until you land somewhere where you're comfortable and happy and you can see the career unfolding. But the pressure that I think society puts on you, your high school teachers, your parents, whatever, to sort of be something when you graduate is kind of, I think it's not useful. Yeah. And I think that it's something that you all and all of your cohort across the university should try to let go of in order to experience different career paths and different potentials, because you're still young.
Just to amplify what Johanna had said, recognizing that you are something now versus focusing on what you will need to become to be accepted in society is a strong message that I would want to underscore, because I think all of you entered into the program for different reasons, but it was certainly not in pursuit of that job training, because the conceit of the program is that there's something more that you are taught here, right?
I'll add one thing. I mean, I felt really uncertain as well. Like, again, I wanted to have a pretty linear academic career path. The cracks in that start to appear, right? And then I had that same feeling. Like, this program, again, there's kind of a reverse side to the experience you get, because I became really close friends with everyone. I knew the professors really well. There's a bit of a fallout when you leave it, to be honest. Like, I felt like there was a huge part that this support system that I had when I was here in Ottawa that suddenly was gone, right? And even my experience at U of T is very different. Like, it's a much bigger institution, and the city of Toronto is a very different place to live, right? So for all those reasons, I felt uncertain in the same way. And I think what's funny now is that, again, when I was tutoring, I was like, how the hell, what am I gonna do? I think I made $14,000 the year I graduated, which how can you survive on that amount of money, right? And now when I look back, I was like, oh, I actually learned a lot doing that. It's still, I'm telling the story here, I'm sitting here now saying that. So prepare yourself for a little bit of uncertainty. I think be kind to yourself. Like Shauna says, you don't have to have it figured out. Everything that you learn, even if you hate it, you learn something doing it. That's the advice I would give myself when I was 24 is don't get so bent out of shape about not having it figured out right away.
Being forced to move out of your parents' home to get a job will breed invention, innovation. You'll look at your contacts list and go, who can I ask for help? And you're gonna be so delighted and maybe disappointed for a little while, but it's a good experience. It's so important to not know where you're going, because it leads you to so many open opportunities. Be okay with being Dante, Be okay with just the path.
Okay, this might sound a little bit idealistic or pessimistic, depending on how you look at it.
Excellent.
But just based on what I know about the corporate world, I find it hard to believe that you can find a job that's really emotionally and intellectually and even spiritually fulfilling, I guess you would say. Do you think that it's possible to find that?
This is such an easy question to answer. No, so the question, again, is the capacity to find an emotionally or spiritually fulfilling job in the corporate world. And again, I think part of the reason why we're here is when we were students, there was a fundamental disconnect between the college and, say, private enterprise. I will say for me personally, one of the things that has emerged since I've been a student is the idea of startups and the idea of creating your own businesses as a problem-solving opportunity. You start a business to solve a problem. But I totally understand you. I have left a number of jobs because I did not believe in the mandate, in the work, or in the people. That doesn't undermine your capability to start your own business or find businesses that do align. Maybe they're not businesses, maybe they're not for profits. There's a company called Lightspeed. They are a very successful Canadian tech company. Dax Da Silva is the CEO and founder. He just donated $40 million to a nonprofit initiative to help with, well, the dreadful state of climate change. He is a person who knew to start a business to solve one sort of problem and use other sort of organizational tools to solve for others. So I don't think we're necessarily pushing anyone to a specific role or job or corporate. I think we just wanted to kind of come back and show you that there is potential there. But yeah, if you can't bring your whole self to your work, it's probably not the right environment to be working in.
Well, I'll plug Shopify a little bit here, I guess.
Go for it.
It is a good place to work. And I guess part of what I've learned over 10 years is, I mean, I agree with you. I felt the same way, right? I wanted to do a PhD and study philosophy, and I was high-minded about it. And I think having a lot of different jobs now, sometimes like the conditions of a job are sometimes more important than like necessarily what it is that you're doing. And you'll find, you know, as you get older, like you can really be satisfied by working with people who are smart on problems that interest you, even if it's working for a corporation, right? And I work with people that are really intelligent. They have PhDs in computer science or like have their own stories like this. They have interesting interior lives and they're fun to work with. And then I work for a company that is cool and supports us and is growing, as allows me to come here on a Friday and do this. So like those things seem small, I guess, and I used to not weigh them against like the sort of bigger spiritual fulfillment, as you said it. But I think over time I've just realized like, in some ways those are more important maybe as you get older, and then second, like you kind of can find those things. You find like-minded people that you work with, you solve interesting problems, you grow and learn, and that's what I find spiritually fulfilling.
I think when I graduated, I learned to define what is a public organization or company and what is a private one. And I thought public meant the good. Mm-hmm. It meant mm-hmm. nonprofit. It meant, you know, social contract, mission driven. We underpay our workers, but gosh, are they passionate? Mm-hmm. Plucky. And you know, we have a board of directors, but I promise they don't determine anything, and they don't take, you know, weird payouts or anything. And it's like you think one thing, and then you learn that like sometimes small privately owned business is actually just as altruistic, as in like gives back to the community, and is making a really big impact in ways that you didn't think about. So I think try both. Try a public, you know, publicly funded company that's like, you know, Canadian and this and that, and like is a nonprofit or a charity, and you know, decide if you like it and if it is actually fulfilling a lot of those, you know, things that you're thinking are important, or if some of them can be, and I won't name names, some nonprofits are really seedy and really, really not great, and are letting their shell, you know, cover up crimes in some cases. Sorry, we'll edit that in post. None of the places I've worked.
I mean, 2 CEOs were just in front of the ethics commission about this.
It's a great podcast that we will
So interesting to learn about ethics and morality and humanities and then see how it's applied in the corporate world. But in terms of private companies, like Shopify technically is a privately founded company. It's not a charity. It's not a nonprofit. You know what it does? Because I have to tell my parents every time I see them. It's a commerce company that allows businesses of all sizes to sell things online to people. How many places have you ordered from during the pandemic online? Restaurants, boutiques, yoga studios. Like, how many of you have made an interaction, an exchange of monies for services and goods online in the last 18 months? Do you know what you've done? Is you've saved a small business owner. You have helped them at the most crucial period of their life. And I feel really happy that Shopify is one, giving them like that service, that product, and that ability. They've also given them loans, and they've helped them with equity and capital, and like, it's kind of cool to say I work for a company that is not trying to like destroy the world. Like, they literally want more small businesses. They want to break up monopolies. They want small mom and pop businesses in Ottawa to not shutter because of the pandemic. And like, I'm so happy whenever I make an order online or I buy from a restaurant and it's like powered by the Shop Pay app, you know? It's like, it feels really nice. Because commerce is power, but it doesn't have to mean greed and it doesn't have to mean evil, you know? Like, we all paid tuition to go to this lovely college.
Well, exactly.
Yeah, I would just say, maybe to circle around that, our intention here is to make sure that you don't close off options to pursue because of assumptions or lack of experience or not seeing the pathway to find what you want from them. But yeah, I work for myself now because I wouldn't be able to work for anyone else. But that I came to that understanding after working at a variety of different organizations. We want you to all feel like you can pursue whatever you want because you've had the education and training to literally go and do that.
Yeah.
Okay, we had a question right here as well.
Yeah, so with regards, you were talking about like the importance of talking, like adding skills that are not necessarily like directly related to the program on your resume, like any extracurriculars you mentioned as an example. But if you are applying for jobs, like your employers will still be looking at like where you're studying and what sort of programs you're taking. And one thing that I'm wondering about is the humanities program. It's a very small, obscure program. So I was wondering if there were any sorts of difficulties that you found in like getting into the workforce because of the unrecognizability of like the program compared to like a BA in like art or.
That's a good question.
Okay, yeah. So just again for the Zoom audience, I think whether or not the things that you put on your resume, side skills versus the program itself, can be fundamental detriments. With extreme care and sympathy, I will say I fundamentally reject the premise of the question. The reason we are here is to tell you that you should be going out and bludgeoning people over the head with the fact that you've gotten a better education than most people in Canada or elsewhere. And leading with that can be incredibly powerful because those people themselves don't understand the context and the power of what you've learned. Part of that realization I think that we've all had in sitting in like a professional setting in the room and realizing that just being in discussion room and discussing ideas every week based upon difficult readings that you have done have put you miles ahead of everyone else in that room who is hopefully like just trying to do their job. So I would, if you are, and I think this kind of came up when we were discussing even the announcement for this event, even a little bit of like wondering what the benefits of this degree is in the professional career. Like we are here to explicitly say, you're awesome. It is literally your, like the ace that you can play, not only in promoting yourself, but because of what you've learned here. And it took us years to figure that out. So we're trying to give it to you straight now. But understanding how to communicate the value of the education that you have here will benefit you in a variety of ways. So I mean that sincerely because I completely understand where you're coming from now. We want you to walk away from this rejecting that. Like just let that idea go because it's not true.
I mean, I would say like the obscurity can be an advantage in a way, and if I've tried to say anything about that, it's like I think it has worked to my advantage in a lot of ways, right? Like, again, I talk about philosophy in every interview I've had, and I think it makes me a bit different than other candidates. So I wouldn't worry so much about that. I mean, that being said, I worried about it when I graduated, and studying more and getting more certification is always a good thing. So I think both these things can be true. I think the obscurity, as you put it, is actually an advantage if you, again, hopefully what we're trying to impart is that there are skills and you should be aware of them, and you should put this at the front of when you're going into the job market. But also, there's all kinds of things you could do. Like I did a web development at a boot camp, for example. I got a project management certification when I was working at Ryerson because I could take the course for free. And so all those things also help, and you're going to grow a resume as your career unfolds. So it's not just going to be BHum and that's it on there forever. But when you start, embrace it. I think it's a really good advantage. Here's an example though. Like, so every week at Shopify, there's like town hall. Okay, so we like tune into it. Right?
It's like a staff meeting.
It's like a staff meeting, right? And they now live stream it. Like we all are getting live stream for everything. And like they sometimes like one of the execs.
He always talks about humanities stuff.
Yeah, he talks about like Nietzsche and Hegel.
Oh my God, he quotes.
Yeah, he quotes like I don't know.
But I don't know if he's read it. I don't know if he's read it.
I have no idea whether he's read it exactly. Like the Hegel quote the other day, like I nitpicked
out of context.
Yeah, it was a little. It
depressing,
wasn't so great,
guys. Not great.
But there's like a practical example of our day to day. Like there's people making Hegel jokes in a corporate environment, but
Should
I
try
actually
and be
we
cool.
get the joke.
And like 3% of that staff know who Hegel is or know that he's not around anymore.
But it actually makes you look kind of cool to your coworkers that you do get it and you can explain the reference and you understand the quote.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, cool, but
Listen, as someone that works in talent, we're not going to be judging your resume with the perspective of, is he a 20-plus year
Yeah, that's
worker?
true.
You're a new grad. No one's going to be worried about the program itself or if it's obscure or not. They'll probably be really interested to know more about it. Think about how everyone also is working remotely online right now. We're all encountering new people from different countries and places and cities and learning about new programs that we never saw before. Because you might be working somewhere in the US, but based in Canada. Like you might be a virtual worker for a while. Who knows? So don't stress about, is my degree recognizable? Is it a Yale degree? You know, things like that. Or does it have a subject or a domain that makes sense, like computer science or engineering or something? What they're going to see is, are you a fan of the place that you're applying? Like, did you go there as a client or an audience member or a gallery attendee? Like, did you tell that story when you were writing your cover letter? Do you explain how your other interests are relevant to the role? That's what I would focus on, and like really building up those skills, soft and hard skills, more than like, what is your CV in terms of your degrees and your education? Like, when I look at early stage career people or like just like fresh students and graduates, I'm more looking about them as humans. I remember where I was and I go, what are they interested in? Do they know a couple languages? Did they volunteer somewhere? I look at their whole narrative. I don't just look at what they've done, because I know that you haven't had many jobs, or the jobs you've had are maybe like me. I worked in like retail at a mall and a grocery store, before I got like a business job. So I know how to read someone's resume, and I know the right places will too, and they'll say, this guy seems very interesting. He wrote his thesis or his graduation paper on Hegel and quotes it at town halls.
Yeah, ask them about questions
There's a
being
code in the
students.
back.
Oh, first year.
oh, 2000.
2000?
Easy.
I think it was 3000. I did music, history of music. I really loved history of music, and that was important for me.
I would say Hum's 2000. Yeah. But because that's where, so I think there's some people here that did multiple years at the same time. Because I transitioned broadly from Carleton into the program, I did first year and second year at the same time, which is, imagine reading the Bible backwards. That is really weird. So I think fundamentally that's where kind of things connect when it comes to the human discourse. But there was a couple of like deep reading sessions that we did with individual professors where you would spend the entire semester reading one book page by page together. And those were some of my favorite, because we got maybe 20 pages into Being in Time, and it was like the most fun I've ever had in my life. So I think some of those classes are that process, and as Ian was saying, some of the things that we miss, and like, please do not take that for granted, because as you get older, it gets very difficult to do that. But yeah, Hum 2000 has all the hits, I think.
Okay, for the Zoom crowd too, we didn't repeat the question.
Oh, favorite class, I guess.
Can I add my favorite class? Yes, I loved history of music. I don't know if they teach it. They still teach it? Oh my God. Professor Gardner was he's retired officially now, but he's the reason I'm into opera. He made it accessible and fun, and oh my God, love Don Giovanni. But also, fourth year, Kimberly Stratton taught the history of Satan.
Yeah.
The history of Satan. I wrote my paper on deals with the devil in music. So like from Paganini to Robert Johnson. Oh my God,
Oh, cool.
The coolest course. Just learning about the devil and like, popular culture and text.
Yeah, I would definitely say I had a fourth year moment where you start reading Charles Taylor, and it's like the whole intention of this program in like a very small book, and it's the Kaiser Soze moment of The Usual Suspects, where it's like it was all put together towards this conclusion. How do we ask them what their favorite?
Can we flip it back to you guys?
Yeah.
I mean, or like favorite reading, because I know that you've only been to so many courses.
I really enjoyed reading First Maccabees in the class Maccabees to Muhammad.
That's really sweet.
I'm very interested in like sort of like religion, so I liked reading the Hebrew Bible in Hum's 1000 and title, but it also combines sort of like the classical politics of the Seleucid Empire in the 2nd century BC. So I just found that to be very fascinating.
Cool.
I like how you sold that to us. Like, I want to read that again.
Yeah.
You know, like that's a skill, by the way, what you just did. You just pitched a book that we'd already read and forgot we read.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Any
It's amazing.
other Maccabee stands out here, or what else we got?
Well, from last year, I really liked reading the Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah.
My family, like, there's Hinduism, like, kind of in our family. So it was really interesting, like, actually learning about that and getting to have conversations with my family about that, and, like, seeing what I read compared to, like, what they learned growing up was really interesting.
That's so beautiful.
That's a thing where you don't even know that that's gonna hit you that hard, and then it's brought to you in a way where, yeah.
Did you guys get to see pictures of Professor Salmon's like pilgrimage to the Shiva Linga, the ice linga?
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Oh my God, so
No,
beautiful.
he's not
They
showing
did
those
it
off.
on, they did it on Zoom.
He did it off.
The opera company I work with, we just did an adaptation of Savitri, which is a story from the Upanishads, and it's about like a woman that we read it in humanities, and so it was cool to see that there was this English language opera version of it. So it's so cool to hear those texts brought up. And the Bhagavad Gita is about friendship, I would say, right? Like, there's a lot of connection. I just want to bring it back to humanities.
Along the way.
The friends we made along the way. I'm just saying, it's such a lovely text.
Because we're business people now, we have a keyword call to actions, CTAs, and I think we want to give you some CTAs to like start this process, because you can start doing. I was working a full-time job, running a very large tech publication while in university, and it allowed me, like the minute-ish I graduated, to jump significantly higher in pay scale and seniority because I'd been putting in the time earlier. So we kind of want to open you up to alternatives to studying abroad for third year or things like that. And maybe this is where I throw to Ian.
Okay, well, part of what I do at Shopify is build learning programs, and part of that is early talent. So there's a few things I'll plug, and you can reach out to us if you're interested in them. Shopify runs a number of internship programs. There's intakes in January every year, so that's an option. And there's, again, you can be an intern not in a technical field. If you have technical skills, great. Those are great internships. But there's also things like trust, legal, programming, education, documentation, if you just want to write stuff, and manuals. There's interns all over the business, so keep your eyes out for that. They usually go up on the careers page, but again, you can also just email us. There's another really cool program that you might be interested in. This is called the Apprentice Product Manager Program. None of those words might mean anything to you, but product is an area of technology that will take people from non-technical fields. Again, it's sometimes people from like maybe user research or business backgrounds, but it's cool. It's about understanding value and making trade-offs, and this is a really great pathway into that. And it's basically like an apprenticeship within Shopify, so there's another option. And then last, there's a referral program that we run, which means that like if Amanda and I give you a referral, it really makes a difference if you apply to anything that you look at. So keep us in your network, and we will refer you.
Put like a
10 times out
super
of 10.
gold star next to that recommendation, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I would refer anybody who has a HUMS degree, to your earlier question. Yeah, absolutely. Like, if I know you or I didn't, if you reached out to me and you were from the program, I would definitely make the referral. So,
Yeah.
and Amanda, anything you want to add?
Yeah, and as like a talent specialist and also just someone that's like a career mentor, and I know Ian would offer this too, happy to review resumes,
Yeah,
LinkedIn
totally.
profiles, give you advice. We know how to sort of sell ourselves, obviously, but the idea is you already have amazing skills and backgrounds. We just want to show you how to put it online in a way that's legible to people who maybe, again, don't know what the humanities is, or you don't know what words to put up from your degree. So hit us up. We'll share our emails.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm really excited to just keep the connection going with this cohort who's graduating, but also the second, third, first years.
Totally. Okay, and then we have one final thing. Just underscore this message, because like sincerely, it's the reason why we're here. We're gonna play like a 40-second video to just reinforce this, and then maybe put some context around why it's kind of insane.
Yeah.
good.
Yeah,
40 seconds, you
before,
mean?
if you're wondering
Yeah.
who the person is,
Yes.
we'll give you context.
Okay. So
Hey everyone, Harley here. I'm an entrepreneur and the president of Shopify. I want to quickly take a moment to reach out and encourage all of you to consider joining Shopify when you graduate or for our next intern cohort. I think oftentimes people assume that you need to be a developer or an engineer to work for a tech company. But I can tell you firsthand, there are so many roles here that require a very diverse range of skills. And I think entrepreneurship in itself requires critical thinkers, people that want to solve big problems, people that are resourceful. And many of those skills you acquire as an arts major can actually have a really big impact. So hope you're all having a great day, and thank you for letting me drop in here quickly. And I look forward to seeing you all apply. Have a great day.
Okay, so to reinforce that, that is the president of Canada's most valuable company who, when I made the request to just send a message to you, said yes within like 10 minutes to make this happen. This person also completely rejected me to be interviewed on stage earlier this week for the reason why I'm in Ottawa, which is like a large tech conference, which I think hopefully underscores like what he thought was important in the two requests I made. Yeah. And again, to be like as explicit as possible, to not undervalue yourselves or the capabilities that you have. And thank you for letting us be here. It's awesome.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah,
thank you
it
all
was
so much for coming.
And thank you, Zoom. Thank you
Bye,
for
Zoom.
watching. Have a good dinner.